Hello and welcome. This is going to be the start of a small series in the context of tools of the trade, but I'm concentrating on tools that I use around creating videos and streams. I'm trying to keep these as short as possible, and therefore, let me not talk too much around and beat around the bush. This here is Touch Portal. Touch Portal is actually an iPad app. It also works on very old iPads like my iPad 2 with iOS 9 or 10. I think I have 10. Is it 9 or 10? Anyway, it's an old iOS, and there isn't really that much left on new apps that actually work on those older iOS versions. Step by step, they're getting replaced by apps that need iOS 12, 13, and so on. So I was happy to see that this tool also works on my old iPad because I want to use it to its best, whatever is still possible to do with an old iPad. And that is actually a perfect tool. The reason why I'm having this is I use OBS. OBS is a recording software. It's actually the one that currently records this here. I bring this in. I turn off the preview because otherwise we get this mirror in the mirror effect. And yeah, you can see it's a complicated software. The thing is, it is on another screen, on a second screen. And the second screen is, yeah, it is a good bit away from the main screen. And it means that every time I want to change something in OBS, I actually need to move the mouse over a wide area, and in X-Plane actually what happens is when I do that, often the menu bar at the top shows up and it doesn't go away until I come back with the mouse into the simulator window. So I have to be very quick with the mouse, and it's difficult then to hit some of the smaller elements of OBS. So when you see here, you see that? So making things visible or not visible, all right? Or switching scenes. This is all very tiny, especially when it's a bit further away and when you're in the middle of something and you want to quickly switch. Now, yes, you can create key combinations. But then again, first I have to remember all these keys. Well, I do in the meantime because I've reduced it to a very small amount. And I also had to pick key combinations, I don't know, Control, Shift, F9 or something, which I don't use in the simulator or in any other tool. But it still means that when I'm in the midst of something, I need to remember what the key was, I need to press the key, or I have to move the mouse and then find these little itsy bitsy things, or for example, mute the microphone, whatever. So that actually was, for a longer time, was a bit of a problem for me. And I looked at hardware. There is a Stream Deck, or what's it called, from Elgato, very expensive for what it is. Basically a bunch of buttons, depending on the size, by the way. You can get smaller ones and you can get bigger ones, and they're not cheap. They're not cheap, and this is sort of kind of limited hardware because you can only do that particular thing. So I thought, do I really want to spend that much money for something that I use when I do a video, or especially for streaming? This is more for the streaming situation. It says no. So I started looking around, are there alternatives? And basically alternatives that would run on my old iPad. And I discovered one. There are, I think, one or two more, but that was the one that, it kind of worked best for me. So you can get it as a demo. So in demo mode, then you are limited regarding the number of buttons and rows. But it was enough for me to figure it out and say, yep, that is usable. And I could have actually probably gone by with the limitations of the demo version, which is 1 page and 4 buttons in 2 rows, so 8 buttons. That would have been more or less enough for me for controlling OBS. But as you know, once I've started, I discovered, oh, you can do this, you can do that, you can do the other. Oh, bummer, I don't have more buttons. So I paid the $12, which is not that much. If you consider, especially if you compare it with hardware. Yes, obviously, if you have to buy an iPad to use this, the calculation, of course, wouldn't work out. But I have this thing for many, many years. It was basically second generation iPads. So this thing lies here for at least 6 years or something like that. It's still going strong. And I still use it as much as I can for various things. Discord, for example, is one that still works on it. So I will use it as long as I have important applications still working on this. I listen to internet radio, that kind of stuff. For that, it works fine, and is here on my table actually. I have rearranged my sim setup here so that I have now my 2 old iPads here, and they help me with various things. And one of them is now this here. What does it do? The software, you need the desktop software, because it connects then to things like OBS, and then you can define pages. I have created 2 pages that I use and 1 page where I had hoped that it might work. Unfortunately, it did not turn out to work with the Explain. Basically, what I did is I have some functions in Explain that I would have liked to trigger, and I would have used key combinations. So I had hoped that the fact that you can actually send a key stroke would end up in Explain, and fortunately that didn't work. The key combinations, they end up in other programs such as an editor. So I can actually press a button and then I would see something in an editor, but it would not end up in Explain. Explain somehow scans the keyboard differently, and therefore these key combinations did not end up in Explain, which is a pity, but still the actual purpose is still there. This is the main page. I just switched between 2 pages. One is the OBS page, and I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'm just quickly explaining what these buttons are, and this is the way it looks also on the iPad. Here I can start and stop stream. I still have to think about how I can make this a bit safer, because this is so easy to accidentally hit this instead of the other and then stop the stream or even start the stream. I started accidentally a stream the other night just by accidentally hitting this one here. There is no question coming. There is no dialogue coming, which I normally do have. So when I start a stream or when I stop the stream, I get actually asked, do you really want to do this? Here, it just stops or it just starts. So it's a bit dangerous, and I'm thinking about taking this out because it's too dangerous during a stream. For recording, it's not very practical if that happens, but I can still just start the recording again and then use something like Bandicut. I have Bandicut, which is a program that very simply allows you to combine 2 videos of the same kind, and I have often that I had to interrupt because of another reason in older OBS versions, and I updated only recently because I'm the one guy that says never change a winning team. OBS did the job. Now there were some issues coming due to Windows updates and I don't know, driver updates and whatever. So I decided to go to the next version, and I discovered there's a pause function for which I now defined a button, by the way. But before that I had to stop, and then I had to kind of combine these videos, which is a bit awkward too. Then muting the desktop or muting the mic, especially muting the mic. I use this at least once during a video or during a stream, especially when they're longer, because I may have a dry throat, or I feel that a sneeze or cough is coming on, or something like that, or the telephone rings. By the time that I find this flippin' little symbol there somewhere on the audio mixer on the other screen, at the other end of the other screen, it's already too late. So I often stopped the video because I was quicker, and then had to combine them again. Here, I can just call them up. This down here, I have, in OBS, what you can do is you can define scenes, and these scenes are, well, you've seen the pause screen, for example. There's a slideshow going, and sometimes I activate YouTube music on it. There's a recording, which is basically only the headline. and nothing else. Then there's a live. That's when we also put in information about the flight, you know, speed, wind, and all that kind of stuff. Then there's a special stream and LAN. That's for specific aircraft. That's when you remember, maybe if you've seen this, I have videos where we have a smaller SIM screen, and then we have all kinds of windows, PFDs, NDs, FMCs, moving maps, AviTab or Navigraph or whatever, what have you. That's the stream thing. And the LAN mode is basically similar because it's back to basically the live mode, but I also put up the PFD and maybe some approach chart via AviTab. And I can very, very quickly switch between these two. And then I have some special things. These are individual pop-ups or overlays. For example, the SIM Toolkit Pro. When I press here, I can bring up the SIM Toolkit Pro in big size, and then I can very quickly hide it for you again. I see it all the time, but you see it only when I activate it. This is the OBS map overlay. That will be another video where I show you at the moment what is possible with SIM Toolkit Pro. And then there's the AviTab. I externalize the AviTab window, and then I can use it as an overlay, which I can put into the video. And that's it. None of that is running, so I can't show you. I just wanted to show you the application. And the other thing, the other page that I have is the SIM tools. That's basically all the tools that I may start before Explain and Explain itself. I can now start up from here. So that's especially practical if I have started the stream and then I realize I forgot one of the programs. Then I need to go to the other screen. I need to find either the little symbol if I have it on the desktop, or I need to go to the menu. Yes, it's possible. I've done it before, you know, but here this is very simple. I organized all the tools that I usually use, the ones that are started in many cases, not maybe in all. And that is OBS itself for recording, obviously. The Bene overlay, that's I'm going to show you that too in another video, which does the information bars. The Ox organizer that I use before I start Explain. The GoFlight interface software, which I need for the my second-hand, age-old GoFlight panels here. Then the SIM Toolkit Pro is a very central tool that I'm planning to use practically now for almost all streams and videos if there are flights and not something else. The Active Sky for XP, I use that when I need real weather. TopCat is a payware performance calculator, and Airplane Toolbox is a freeware performance calculator. So for every aircraft that I can't find in Airplane Toolbox, or for which TopCat has a profile, I use TopCat to be a bit more, let's say, realistic with my calculations. For all the other tools, if available, I use Airplane Toolbox. I've shown you Airplane Toolbox in our Tools of the Trade. And then XPilot. XPilot is the VATSIM, client, the new one that I use. I don't use Swift. I have Swift installed, but to be honest, I prefer XPilot. It's so much. It's really down to the basics. It doesn't offer all the possibilities of Swift, but it's the one that I can use very good. And the other thing is I can actually introduce an overlay, an XPilot overlay here in OBS, and it's practical. Whereas the Swift, unfortunately, with all its windows and its things, is very difficult to be used in OBS. Yeah, and that's it. That's the Touch portal. There's not much more I can tell you about it. Yeah, you put your thumb on one of these buttons and things happen. The only thing, as I said, that did not work, and I had really hoped that it would, because that would have been sort of the icing on the cake, would have been that if I could do certain functions in Explain, for example, popping up AviTab or things like that, you know, that would have been nice, but it's not a catastrophe because the actual purpose why I got this tool, that works extremely well. So I'm quite happy with it, and yeah, and for the price, I have to say, considering it, they have already an iPad. As I say, it can be an old one because it works from iOS 9. So any device, even a phone, an iPhone with iOS 9 can be used to do switches. Okay, that's it. Let's not draw it out too much. Until next time.